Disclaimer. This material is for entertainment purposes only, and for no other purpose. Please consult a legal professional for proper legal advice, including understanding what this document means. Please consult the actual legal document for all legal uses. This presentation is no substitute for the actual filed document. We cannot help you if you do not follow this simple, reasonable, and good advice. Please let us know about any errors in this presentation so that we can correct them. Unfortunately, we cannot and will not correct any errors made in the underlying documents, so please make sure the error is a presentation error. Thank you very much for your time, support, and interest. We hope you enjoy this content. Sponsors. Unfortunately, there are no video sponsors or channel sponsors at this time. If you would like to sponsor us, please reach out. All donations are welcome. Thank you. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and share this video with others. Doing this will help us reach other interested people, and will help to support this channel. We appreciate your action. Thank you. Chapter 7. Image: President Trump speaks at the January 6 Ellipse rally. Photo by Tassos Katapotes, Getty Images. 7. 187 minutes of dereliction. At 1:10 p.m. on January 6, President Trump concluded his speech at the Ellipse. By that time, the attack on the U.S. Capitol had already begun. But it was about to get much worse. The president told thousands of people in attendance to march down Pennsylvania Avenue to the Capitol. He told them to fight like hell because if they didn't, they were not going to have a country anymore. Not everyone who left the Ellipse did as the commander-in-chief ordered, but many of them did. The fighting intensified during the hours that followed. By 1:21 p.m., President Trump was informed that the Capitol was under attack. He could have interceded immediately. But the president chose not to do so. It was not until 4:17 p.m. that President Trump finally tweeted a video in which he told the rioters to go home. The 187 minutes between the end of President Trump's speech and when he finally told the mob to leave the U.S. Capitol was a dereliction of duty. In the U.S. military, a service member is deemed to be derelict in the performance of duties when that person willfully or negligently fails to perform that person's duties or when that person performs them in a culpably inefficient manner. As Commander-in-Chief, President Trump had the power, more than any other American, to muster the U.S. government's resources and end the attack on the U.S. Capitol. He willfully remained idle even as others, including his own vice president, acted. President Trump could have called top officials at the Department of Justice, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Defense, the FBI, the Capitol Police Department, or the D.C. Mayor's office to ensure that they quelled the violence. He made no such calls. Instead, President Trump reached out to Rudolph Giuliani and friendly members of Congress, seeking their assistance in delaying the joint session of Congress. And the president tweeted at 2:24 p.m., at the height of the violence, that his own vice president lacked the courage to act, a statement that could only further enrage the mob. Meanwhile, Vice President Mike Pence assumed the duties of the president, requesting the assistance of top officials, even though he was not in the chain of command and had no constitutional power to issue orders. In testimony before the Select Committee, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley explained that President Trump did nothing, zero to marshal the government's resources during the assault on the U.S. Capitol. In contrast, Vice President Pence had 2 or 3 calls with General Milley and other military officials, even as the mob hunted him. During those calls, Vice President Pence was very animated and issued very explicit, very direct, unambiguous orders. The Vice President told Acting Secretary of Defense Chris Miller to get the military down here, get the National Guard down here, and put down this situation. President Trump could have made those same demands. He chose not to do so, a damning fact that President Trump's own Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, quickly tried to cover up. "We have to kill the narrative that the Vice President is making all the decisions," General Milley recalled Meadows as saying. "We need to establish the narrative, that the President is still in charge and that things are steady or stable," Meadows said, which General Milley described as a red flag. In his testimony, General Milley also reflected on what it meant for a president not to be taking action in a time of crisis. "You're the commander-in-chief. You've got an assault going on the Capitol of the United States of America, and there's nothing? No call? Nothing? Zero? And it's not my place to, pass judgment or, I'm the, but no attempt to call the Secretary of Defense? No attempt to call the Vice President of the United States of America, who's down on the scene. To my knowledge, it wasn't, I just noted it. President Trump's closest advisors, both inside and out of the White House, implored him to act sooner. Earlier in the week, two of the president's most trusted aides, Eric Hirschman and Hope Hicks, both wanted President Trump to emphasize that January 6 would be a peaceful protest. President Trump refused. On the 6th, as the riot began to escalate, a colleague texted Hicks and wrote, "Hey, I know you're seeing this. But he really should tweet something about being nonviolent." "I'm not there," Hicks replied. "I suggested it several times Monday and Tuesday and he refused." Once the attack was underway, President Trump initially ignored the counsel of his own family, members of his administration, Republican elected officials, and friendly Fox News personalities. Both Ivanka Trump and Donald Trump Jr. wanted their father to tell the rioters to go home sooner. The president delayed. At 2:38 p.m., President Trump sent this tweet, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." Sarah Matthews, the White House Deputy Press Secretary, told the Select Committee that President Trump resisted using the word peaceful. The president added the words "stay peaceful" only after Ivanka Trump suggested the phrase. Trump Jr. quickly recognized that his father's tweet was insufficient. "He's got to condemn, this shit. ASAP. The Capitol, Police tweet is not enough," Trump Jr. wrote in a text to White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. President Trump did not tell the rioters to disperse in either his 2:38 p.m. tweet, or another tweet at 3:13 p.m. Multiple witnesses told the Select Committee that Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy contacted the president and others around him, desperately trying to get him to act. McCarthy's entreaties led nowhere. "I guess they're just more upset about the election theft than you are," President Trump told McCarthy. Top lawyers in the White House counsel's office attempted to intercede. Two Fox News primetime personalities, always so obsequious, begged those around the president to get him to do more. But President Trump was unmoved. There's no question that President Trump had the power to end the insurrection. He was not only the commander-in-chief of the U.S. military, but also of the rioters. One member of the mob, Stephen Ayers, told the Select Committee that he and others quickly complied as soon as President Trump finally told them to go home. "We literally left right after President Trump's 4:17 p.m. video come out. To me if he would have done that earlier in the day, 1:30 p.m., maybe we wouldn't be in this bad of a situation or something," Ayers said. Another rioter, Jacob Chansley, commonly referred to as the QAnon shaman, was one of the first 30 rioters to enter the U.S. Capitol. Chansley told a reporter that he left the building because Trump asked everybody to go home. At 4:25 p.m., just 8 minutes after President Trump tweeted his video, an Oath Keeper named Ed Vallejo messaged other members of his group, a fair number of whom were at the Capitol, "Gentlemen, our commander-in-chief has just ordered us to go home." Comments? Even then, President Trump did not disavow the rioters. He endorsed their cause, openly sympathized with them, and repeated his big lie once again. "I know your pain, I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us," President Trump said at the beginning of his 4:17 p.m. video. "It was a landslide election, and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace." Image: President Trump appears on a monitor in the White House briefing room depicting a video he released instructing rioters to go home. Photo by Joshua Roberts, Getty Images. "We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt." The president portrayed the violence as something his political foes would use against him, saying, "This was a fraudulent election, but we can't play into the hands of these people." The president concluded his short video by again praising the men and women who had overrun the U.S. Capitol. "We have to have peace. So go home. We love you. You're very special," President Trump said. "You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home, and go home in peace." Just after 6 p.m. on January 6, President Trump issued his final tweet of the day, again lauding the rioters and justifying their cause. President Trump made excuses for the riot, saying this is what happens when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. The president added, "Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." The following day, President Trump's advisors encouraged him to deliver a short speech denouncing the attack on the U.S. Capitol. The president struggled to deliver his prepared remarks. According to Cassidy Hutchinson, President Trump wanted to say that he would pardon the rioters. Lawyers in the White House counsel's office objected, so this language was not included. John McEnany, the director of the White House Presidential Personnel Office, also testified that in the days following the attack, he heard President Trump mention the possibility of a blanket pardon for all those involved in the events of January 6. President Trump never did give up on the prospect. Since leaving office, the now former president has said he would consider full pardons with an apology to many of the January 6 defendants if he is re-elected. 7.1 Reinsert the Mike Pence lines. President Trump tweeted 3 times on the morning of January 6, repeating a false claim of election fraud at 8:06 a.m., pressuring Vice President Pence to delay the electoral count at 8:17 a.m., and urging Republican Party officials to do the same at 8:22 a.m. He made calls to his Republican allies in Congress, many of whom were already committed to objecting to the electoral count. And he dialed his lawyers and advisors, including Steve Bannon and Rudolph Giuliani, twice, both of whom had been counseling the president on how to stay in power. There was one person, critical to his plan, whom President Trump tried to reach but couldn't. At 9:02 a.m., he asked the switchboard operator to call his vice president. Vice President Pence did not answer the call. Instead, between 9:52 a.m. and 10:18 a.m., the president spoke with his speechwriter, Stephen Miller, about the words he would deliver at the Save America rally just hours later. The former president's speech had come together over the course of 36 hours, going from a screed aimed at encouraging congressional objections to one that would ultimately incite mob violence. Only 4 minutes after the call concluded, at 10:22 a.m., Miller emailed revisions to the speechwriters, instructing them to start inputting these changes ASAP that included red highlights marking POTUS edits. The president had made some cosmetic additions, like peppering in the word corrupt throughout, but there was one substantive edit, a new target, that would focus the crowd's anger on one man. None of the preceding drafts mentioned Vice President Pence whatsoever. But now, at the very last minute, President Trump slipped in the following sentences calling the vice president out by name. "Today, we will see whether Republicans stand strong for the integrity of our elections. And we will see whether Mike Pence enters history as a truly great and courageous leader." Image: President Trump speaks with speechwriter Stephen Miller about his Ellipse speech in the Oval Office on the morning of January 6, 2021. Photo provided to the Select Committee by the National Archives and Records Administration. All he has to do is refer the illegally submitted electoral votes back to the states that were given false and fraudulent information where they want to recertify. With only 3 of the 7 states in question, we win and become president and have the power of the veto. No one on the speechwriting team could explain why President Trump added these lines just 30 minutes before he was originally scheduled to speak at 11 a.m. But by 10:49 a.m., Vincent Haley, a speechwriter who was helping load the teleprompter at the Ellipse, was told to hold off and delete the mention of the vice president, for now. Miller said that Eric Hirschman, a lawyer who was one of the president's senior advisors, asked him in a brief sidebar that morning to omit reference to the vice president and his role in the certification process because he didn't concur with the legal analysis and that it wouldn't advance the ball but would be counterproductive instead. As detailed in Chapter 5, Hirschman and others in the White House were vocal critics of Dr. John Eastman's theory, which claimed that the vice president had the unilateral power to reject electors during the joint session of Congress. Image: President Trump on a phone call with Vice President Mike Pence in the Oval Office on the morning of January 6, 2021. Photo provided to the Select Committee by the National Archives and Records Administration. President Trump repeatedly pressured Pence to either reject certified electors, or delay the electoral count based on Eastman's unconstitutional and illegal theory. Vice President Pence would not budge. The vice president consistently rejected President Trump's demands. After tweeting 4 more times that morning, all of them spreading lies about the election, the president apparently thought he had one last chance to convince his number 2 to overrule the will of the American people. As recounted in Chapter 5, President Trump called Vice President Pence at 11:17 a.m. The call between the two men, during which the president soon grew frustrated or heated, visibly upset, and angry, lasted nearly 20 minutes. And President Trump insulted Vice President Pence when he refused to obstruct or delay the joint session. After that call, General Keith Kellogg said that the people in the room immediately went back to editing the Ellipse speech. At 11:30 a.m., Miller emailed his assistant, Robert Gabriel, with no text in the body but the subject line, "Insert, stand by for phone call." At 11:33 a.m., Gabriel emailed the speechwriting team, "Reinsert the Mike Pence lines. Confirm receipt." Image: President Trump looks backstage at the crowd gathered at the Ellipse. Photo provided to the Select Committee by the National Archives and Records Administration. 1 minute later, speechwriter Ross Worthington confirmed that he had reached Vincent Haley by phone. Haley corroborated that he added one tough sentence about the vice president while he was at the teleprompter. The final written draft had the following Pence reference, "And we will see whether Mike Pence enters history as a truly great and courageous leader." Haley wasn't confident that line was what he reinserted, but email traffic and teleprompter drafts produced by the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, indicate that he was mistaken. After defying President Trump's pressure, Vice President Pence, and the ire of the president he inspired, was back in the speech. After the heated call, President Trump's personal assistant Nicholas Luna handed him a message on White House cardstock and the president departed for the Ellipse to give his speech. Preserved by NARA, the message read, "They are ready for you when you are." When it finally came time for him to speak, President Trump repeatedly directed his anger at Vice President Pence, often ad-libbing lines that were not included in the draft text. 7.2, I'll be there with you. From a tent backstage at the Ellipse, President Trump looked out at the crowd of approximately 53,000 supporters and became enraged. Just under half of those gathered, a sizable stretch of about 25,000 people, refused to walk through the magnetometers and be screened for weapons, leaving the venue looking half-empty to the television audience at home. According to testimony received by the committee, earlier that morning at the White House, the president was told that the onlookers were unwilling to pass through the magnetometers because they were armed. "We have enough space, sir. They don't want to come in right now," Deputy Chief of Staff Tony Ornato reportedly told President Trump. "They have weapons that they don't want confiscated by the Secret Service." So, when President Trump got to the rally site and could see the crowd for himself, he was effing furious, as Cassidy Hutchinson later texted Ornato. Hutchinson testified that just minutes before addressing the crowd, President Trump shouted to his advance team, "I don't effing care that they have weapons. They're not here to hurt me. Take the effing mags away. Let my people in. They can march to the Capitol from here. Take the effing mags away." By noon, President Trump took to the stage at the Ellipse. The president wanted all of those in attendance, including those who hadn't passed through the magnetometers, to come closer to the stage. "And I'd love to have if those tens of thousands of people would be allowed," President Trump said. "But I'd love it if they could be allowed to come up here with us. Is that possible? Can you just let them come up, please?" President Trump repeatedly made it clear to those around him in the days before January 6 that he wanted to march to the Capitol alongside his supporters. That is, President Trump wanted to join his supporters in what the Secret Service refers to as an off-the-record movement, OTR. While the president spoke, Hutchinson texted Ornato, he also kept mentioning OTR to Capitol before he took the stage. Minutes before the president stepped out, Chief of Staff Mark Meadows assured the president he was working on it. President Trump's plan to march appeared once in an early draft of the script, then a later revision was made to add the word building after Capitol, making it clear exactly where the crowd should go. And the president repeatedly told the crowd that he would join them. After this, "We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down, we're going to walk down," he said to the crowd. We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women, and we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them." President Trump used the phrase scripted for him by his White House speechwriters, peacefully and patriotically once, about 20 minutes into his speech. Then he spent the next 50 or so minutes amping up his crowd with lies about the election, attacking his own vice president and Republican members of Congress, and exhorting the crowd to fight. "And we fight. We fight like hell," the president said to a crowd that had already spent the day chanting, "Fight for Trump. Fight for Trump," and that would keep up the chorus when storming the Capitol. Finally, he told the crowd where to go to take back our country, "So we're going to walk down Pennsylvania Avenue. I love Pennsylvania Avenue. And we're going to the Capitol, and we're going to try and give our Republicans, the weak ones because the strong ones don't need any of our help. We're going to try and give them the kind of pride and boldness that they need to take back our country. So let's walk down Pennsylvania Avenue." When the president announced his intentions from the microphone, people listened. House Republican leader Representative Kevin McCarthy called Hutchinson mid-speech. "Do you guys think you're coming to my office?" he asked her. She assured him that they weren't coming at all. "Figure it out. Don't come up here," he replied. The announcement from the stage put the Secret Service on alert, prompting agents to designate over email a last-minute response team to filter in with the crowds on the president's walk or motorcade over to the Capitol and establish an emergency plan if things go south. White House security officials were monitoring the situation in real time, remarking that President Trump was going to the Capitol and that they are finding the best route now. Nonetheless, these staffers were in a state of shock, because they knew, particularly if the president joined, this would no longer be a rally. "We all knew that this was going to move to something else if he physically walked to the Capitol," an employee said. "I don't know if you want to use the word insurrection, coup, whatever. We all knew that this would move from a normal democratic public event into something else." But the logistics made the move all but impossible. It was complicated for the Secret Service to coordinate a presidential movement even on a normal day. But today was not a normal day. Tens of thousands of President Trump's supporters had flooded into downtown D.C. in the days before the rally, and the Secret Service would have to account for that unpredictability. By the end of the president's speech, it was clear that the crowd at the Capitol was growing violent. At 1:19 p.m., a Secret Service agent wrote to Bobby Engel, the head of President Trump's Secret Service detail, FYSA Capitol Police having serious challenges securing the Capitol. 9 priority breach attempts at this time. OTR to anywhere near there is not advisable. Give me a call when free. Front office concerned about OTR to the Capitol. 7.3 The President's anger when he could not march to the Capitol. President Trump concluded his remarks at 1:10 p.m. Luna heard the president mention his intention to join the march to the Capitol after he finished his remarks. Just before the president got into his vehicle, Meadows told him, "We're going to work on it, sir." President Trump was seated in his motorcade vehicle by 1:17 p.m. The committee received information informally from current and former members of the Secret Service and former White House staff relevant to what happened next, what a number of witnesses have described as an angry, irate, or furious interaction in the presidential vehicle between the president and the Secret Service. That initial information, received informally, shaped the committee's questioning of witnesses. The committee's principal concern was that the president actually intended to participate personally in the January 6 efforts at the Capitol, leading the effort to overturn the election either from inside the chamber or from a stage outside the Capitol. The committee regarded those facts as important because they are relevant to President Trump's intent on January 6. But a book published by Mark Meadows in November 2021 made the categorical claim that the president never intended to travel to the Capitol that day. Because the Meadows book conflicted sharply with information that was being received by the committee became increasingly worried that witnesses might intentionally conceal what happened. In our initial informal discussion with the lead of the president's detail, Robert Engel confirmed that President Trump did wish to travel to the Capitol from the Ellipse, but stated that he did not recall many other details. But the committee also received information from Kayleigh, McEnany and Cassidy Hutchinson that also directly contradicted Mark Meadows' book and provided considerably more detail. McEnany testified that President Trump did indeed wish to travel to the Capitol on January 6, and continued to have that goal even after returning from the Ellipse to the White House. McEnany, who spoke with President Trump shortly after he returned to the White House, recalls him expressing a desire to go to the Capitol. "I recall him saying that he wanted to physically walk and be a part of the march, and then saying that he would ride the beast if he needed to, ride in the presidential limo." When asked, McEnany confirmed that yes, he did seem sincere about wanting to do that. Hutchinson's testimony was generally consistent with the information the Select Committee was receiving informally. Like McEnany, Hutchinson confirmed that the president did ask to be transported to Capitol Hill. Many other White House witnesses would ultimately confirm that President Trump wished to travel to the Capitol on January 6, comprehensively rebutting the false statements in Meadows' book. Part of Hutchinson's account was a second-hand description of what occurred in the presidential vehicle, which built upon and was consistent with information the committee has received informally. Hutchinson testified that, when she returned from the Ellipse, Ornato was standing outside his office door when he waved me down, Hutchinson said. The two of them walked into Ornato's office, and he shut the door behind them. Engel was already there, sitting in a chair looking down, kind of looking a little lost and kind of discombobulated. According to Hutchinson, Ornato then recounted a struggle in the president's car. At no point during Ornato's telling, or at any point thereafter, did Engel indicate that what Ornato relayed was untrue. Another witness, a White House employee with national security responsibilities, provided the committee with a similar description. Ornato related the irate interaction in the presidential vehicle to this individual in Ornato's White House office with Engel present. And just as Hutchinson testified, this employee told the Select Committee that Engel listened to Ornato's retelling of the episode and did not dispute it. "I don't remember his specific body language, but he did not deny the fact that the president was irate." Engel testified that he does not recall either the conversation with Hutchinson or the similar conversation with the White House employee with national security responsibilities. The committee regarded both Hutchinson and the corroborating testimony by the White House employee with national security responsibilities national security official as earnest and has no reason to conclude that either had a reason to invent their accounts. Image: Cassidy Hutchinson describes a story relayed to her by Tony Ornato about President Trump's desire to go to the Capitol after the Ellipse speech on January 6 during a January 6 Select Committee hearing. Photo by Brandon Bell, Getty Images. A different Secret Service agent, who served on a protective detail at the White House and was present in the presidential motorcade at the Ellipse, provided this view. Committee staff, just a couple of additional questions. Ms. Hutchinson has suggested to the committee that you sympathized with her after her testimony, and believed her account. Is that accurate? Witness: Yeah, that's accurate. I have no reason, we became friends. I worked every day with her for 6 months. Yeah, she became a friend of mine. We had a good working relationship. I have no reason, she's never done me wrong. She's never lied that I know of. I don't have any reason, I don't distrust Ms. Hutchinson. Also, the White House employee with national security responsibilities indicated that knowledge of the angry altercation in the presidential vehicle was known within the White House, and was water cooler talk. In addition, Hutchinson has provided testimony to the committee about efforts by her prior counsel, who was apparently paid by a Trump-funded organization, to suggest that Hutchinson did not need to testify about the issue in the presidential vehicle, could suggest that she did not recall it, or should downplay it. To further corroborate the accounts received of President Trump's intent to travel to the Capitol, the committee interviewed a member of the Metropolitan Police who was also present in the motorcade, Officer Mark Robinson. Officer Robinson confirmed that he was aware contemporaneously of the heated discussion that took place in the presidential vehicle. Committee staff: and was there any description of what was occurring in the car? Mr. Robinson: No. Only that. The only description I received was that the president was upset and that he was adamant about going to the Capitol, and there was a heated discussion about that. Committee staff: when you say heated, Is that your word, or is that the word that was described by the DS agent? Mr. Robinson: No. The word described by the DS agent, meaning that the president was upset, and he was saying there was a heated argument or discussion about going to the Capitol. Mr. Schiff: So about how many times would you say you've been part of that motorcade with the president? Mr. Robinson: Probably over 100 times. Mr. Schiff: And, in that 100 times, have you ever witnessed another discussion of an argument or a heated discussion with the president where the president was contradicting where he was supposed to go or what the Secret Service believed was safe? Mr. Robinson: No. The committee also interviewed the Secret Service agent who was in the same car as Officer Robinson. That person shared a similar account, and confirmed that he did not take issue with Officer Robinson's testimony. The driver of the presidential car said something to the effect of, "The president is pretty adamant that he wants to go to the Capitol," the agent said, recalling what he had heard on the 6th. In addition, the committee interviewed the USS's press secretary, who communicated with both Engel and with the driver in the presidential vehicle after Hutchinson appeared publicly. That witness indicated that Engel's account of the events confirmed that the president was indeed angry, or furious. In fact, when asked about a reporter's tweet indicating that sources within the Secret Service confirmed that Trump was furious about not being able to go to the Capitol with his supporters, the press secretary said he certainly corroborated it with the reporter because that's what I had been told, you know, that the president was upset, he was agitated, about not being able to go. In addition to the testimony above, the committee has reviewed hundreds of thousands of new Secret Service documents, including many demonstrating that the Secret Service had been informed of potential violence at the Capitol before the Ellipse rally on January 6. These documents were critical to our understanding of what the Secret Service and White House knew about the threat to the Capitol on January 6. The committee has also more recently conducted additional interviews with Engel and Ornato, and has also interviewed the driver of the presidential vehicle. Both Engel and the driver testified that, within 30 seconds of getting into the vehicle, the president asked if he could travel to the Capitol. This again is directly inconsistent with the account of events in Meadows's book. According to Engel, he told the president immediately that the move wasn't happening. The president was unhappy with Engel's response and began pushing pretty hard to go. The president repeatedly asked why he could not go to the Capitol. Engel replied that the Secret Service didn't have any people at the Capitol to provide the president with appropriate security. The president responded angrily, telling Engel and the driver, "I'm the president and I'll decide where I get to go." He reassured Engel that it would essentially be fine and that the people there, meaning the people who were marching from the Ellipse to the Capitol at President Trump's instruction, were Trump supporters or something to that effect. According to the Secret Service agent driving the vehicle, the president was animated and irritated about not going to the Capitol. According to Mr. Engel, he ultimately told the president that they would assess what our options were and wait until we can get a plan in place before we went down there. We note that the driver's account acknowledged President Trump's anger to a greater degree than either Engel's initial account in spring 2022, or his more recent account in November 2022. Engel did not characterize the exchange in the vehicle the way Hutchinson described the account she heard from Ornato, and indicated that he did not recall President Trump gesturing toward him. Engel did not recall being present when Ornato gave either Hutchinson or the White House employee with national security responsibilities an accounting of the events. The driver testified that he did not recall seeing what President Trump was doing and did not recall whether there was movement. The Select Committee has great respect for the men and women of the Secret Service. That said, it is difficult to fully reconcile the accounts of several of the witnesses who provided information with what we heard from Engel and Ornato. But the principal factual point here is clear and undisputed: President Trump specifically and repeatedly requested to be taken to the Capitol. He was insistent and angry, and continued to push to travel to the Capitol even after returning to the White House. The motorcade didn't disband upon arriving to the White House, as they usually do. Instead, they were instructed to stand by in case the president's move to the Capitol did indeed happen. The Select Committee received a document from the Secret Service that reflects that at 1:25 p.m., PPD is advising that the president is planning on holding at the White House for the next approximate 2 hours, then moving to the Capitol. They had not made a decision whether or not we were going to transport the president to the Capitol, Robinson was told. Engel testified that he went to Ornato's office when he returned to the West Wing in order to discuss a possible move to the Capitol by President Trump. Given the deteriorating security conditions at the Capitol, it was quickly determined that they could not safely transport the president there. The motorcade waited on West Executive Drive approximately 40 minutes before finally receiving word from the Secret Service that the move had been officially nixed. Internal Secret Service communications bear this out. Not until 1:55 p.m. did Engel notify other agents via email that we are not doing an OTR to the Capitol. 7.4 We're going to try to get the president to put out a statement. Minutes after arriving back at the White House, the president ran into a member of the White House staff and asked whether he or she watched his speech on television. "Sir, they cut it off because they're writing down at the Capitol," the employee said. The president asked what he or she meant by that. "They're writing down there at the Capitol," the employee repeated. "Oh really?" the president asked. "All right, let's go see." A photograph taken by the White House photographer, the last one permitted until later in the day, captures the moment the president heard the news from the employee at 1:21 p.m. By that time, if not sooner, he had been made aware of the violent riot at the Capitol. President Trump walked through the corridor from the Oval Office into the presidential dining room and sat down at the table with the television remote and a Diet Coke close at hand. For the rest of the afternoon, as his country faced an hours-long attack, he hunkered down in or around the dining room, watching television. He left only for a few minutes, from 4:03 p.m. to 4:07 p.m. to film a video in the Rose Garden, only a few steps away, after hours of arm twisting. But otherwise, the president remained in the dining room until 6:27 p.m., when he returned to his private residence. What happened during the 187 minutes from 1:10 p.m. to 4:17 p.m., when President Trump finally told the rioters to go home, is, from an official standpoint, undocumented. For instance, the Presidential Daily Diary, the schedule that tracks every meeting and phone call in which the president partakes, is inexplicably blank between 1:21 p.m. and 4:03 p.m. when asked to explain the gap in record-keeping on and around January 6. White House officials in charge of its maintenance provided no credible explanation, including, "I don't recall a specific reason." The men who spent most of the afternoon in that room with the president, Mark Meadows and Dan Scavino, both refused to comply with lawful subpoenas from the Select Committee. Others in the dining room appeared before the Select Committee but cited executive privilege to avoid answering questions about their direct communications with President Trump. Others who worked just outside of the Oval Office, like the president's personal secretaries Molly Michael and Austin Ferreira Perón Basaldo, claimed not to remember nearly anything from one of the most memorable days in recent American history. The White House photographer, Sheila Craighead, had been granted access to photograph the president during his January 6 speech, but once she got to the White House, and it became clear that an attack was unfolding on the Capitol steps, she was turned away. The president didn't want any photos, she was told. Here's what President Trump did during the 187 minutes between the end of his speech and when he finally told rioters to go home. For hours, he watched the attack from his TV screen. His channel of choice was Fox News. He issued a few tweets, some on his own inclination and some only at the repeated behest of his daughter and other trusted advisors. He made several phone calls, some to his personal lawyer Rudolph Giuliani, some to members of Congress about continuing their objections to the electoral certification, even though the attack was well underway. Here's what President Trump did not do. He did not call any relevant law enforcement agency to ensure they were working to quell the violence. He did not call the Secretary of Defense, he did not call the Attorney General, he did not call the Secretary of Homeland Security. And for hours on end, he refused the repeated requests, from nearly everyone who talked to him, to simply tell the mob to go home. Throughout the afternoon, senior staff regularly entered the room to give him updates on what was happening at the Capitol. And, of course, President Trump used Twitter, where information is shared on an instantaneous basis. Shortly after President Trump entered the dining room, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany swung by to check in with him about the letter Vice President Pence released around 1 p.m. announcing that he would not, in fact, overturn the will of the voters. The president, once again, brought up going to the Capitol. McEnany recorded what he said in her notes, certain of which she later produced to the Select Committee. POTUS wanted to walk to, Capitol. Physically walk. He said fine ride beast, referring to the nickname for the presidential vehicle. Meadows said not safe enough. Meadows told Hutchinson at some point in the day that the president wasn't happy that Bobby Engel didn't pull it off for him, meaning the trip to the Capitol, and that Mark didn't work hard enough to get the movement on the books. Despite the turmoil just outside its walls, the proceedings in the joint session, which had begun at 1 p.m. were still ongoing, and the president was watching them on the television. He was eager to know which senators were lodging objections on his behalf. Back there and he wants list of senators, McEnany's notes read. To, objecting to what? He's calling them one by one. The Select Committee subpoenaed several members of Congress who reportedly spoke with President Trump during the afternoon. None of them complied. Cellular records obtained by the Select Committee suggest that President Trump was on the phone with his lawyer Rudolph Giuliani at least twice during this period. Giuliani's phone connected with the White House switchboard for 3 minutes and 53 seconds at 1:39 p.m. and again for more than 8 minutes at 2:03 p.m. between the two calls. At 1:49 p.m., President Trump tweeted a link to a video of his speech from the Ellipse. Before 1:57 p.m., Hirschman phoned senior advisor to the president Jared Kushner, who was on a plane traveling home from overseas, advising him that people are trying to break into the Capitol and that this is getting pretty ugly. "We're going to see what we can do here," Hirschman said. "We're going to try to get the president to put out a statement." 7.5 He doesn't want to do anything. Throughout the afternoon, the president's advisors tried to get him to tell the mob to leave the Capitol, but to no avail. Ben Williamson, the White House acting director of communications, watched on the news as officers and rioters pepper-sprayed each other and crowds used bicycle barricades to push against officers holding the line. He and Sarah Matthews, the deputy press secretary, devised a plan. He would go to Meadows and she would go to McEnany to urge that the president issue a statement. Williamson first texted Meadows. Would recommend POTUS put out a tweet about respecting the police over at the Capitol. Minutes later, around 2:05 p.m., Hutchinson found Meadows seated in his office on the couch, absorbed by a cell phone screen. "Are you watching the TV, Chief?" she asked. He indicated he was. "Have you talked to the president?" she asked. "No," he replied. "He wants to be alone right now." Rioters broke into the west side of the Capitol building around 2:13 p.m. Just a few minutes later, Hutchinson saw Cipollone barreling down the hallway and, after looking at Hutchinson and shaking his head, opened the door to Meadows' office unannounced. Meadows was right where she left him, still sitting on his phone. "The rioters have gotten to the Capitol, Mark. We need to go down and see the president now," she heard Cipollone say. Cipollone would not confirm or deny any of this exchange, citing executive privilege. "He doesn't want to do anything, Pat," Meadows said, peering up from his phone. "Mark, something needs to be done, or people are going to die and the blood's gonna be on your effing hands," Cipollone said. "This is getting out of control. I'm going down there." Meadows finally stood up from the couch and walked with Cipollone toward the dining room to meet with the president. 7.6 He thinks Mike deserves it. At exactly 2:24 p.m., President Trump made his first public statement during the attack on the Capitol by tweet. It read nothing like the statement his advisors had envisioned. It read, "Mike Pence didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts, not the fraudulent or inaccurate ones which they were asked to previously certify. USA demands the truth." Minutes later, Meadows and Cipollone returned from their talk with the president. No statement was forthcoming. "Mark, we need to do something more. "They're literally calling for the vice president to be effing hung," Hutchinson heard Cipollone say. "You heard him, Pat," Meadows replied. "He thinks Mike deserves it. He doesn't think they're doing anything wrong. This is effing crazy. We need to be doing something more," Cipollone said. Cipollone told the Select Committee that there needed to be an immediate and forceful response public statement, that people need to leave the Capitol now. He said he was pretty clear about his view in the White House that day, and he made that view known as soon as he became aware of the unrest. He would not comment on how the president responded, or on this conversation with Meadows, citing executive privilege. He did indicate that everyone in the White House, except President Trump, agreed that people needed to leave the Capitol. Vice Chair Cheney, and who on the staff did not want people to leave the Capitol? Mr. Cipollone, on the staff? Vice Chair Cheney, in the White House? Mr. Cipollone, I can't think of anybody on that day who didn't want people to get out of the Capitol particularly once the violence started. No. I mean. Mr. Schiff, what about the president? Vice Chair Cheney, yeah. Mr. Cipollone, well, she said the staff. So I answered. Vice Chair Cheney, no. I said in the White House. Image, Noose set up outside of the Capitol on January 6, 2021. Photo by Drew Angerer, Getty Images. Mr. Cipollone, oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I thought you said who else on the staff. Pauses to confer with counsel, yeah. I can't reveal communications. But obviously I think, yeah. What the president did tweet, a broadside at his vice president, enlarged the target on Vice President Pence's back. A Secret Service agent in the Protective Intelligence Division, tasked with monitoring threats against protectees in part by scouring social media, told his colleagues the tweet was probably not going to be good for Pence. A second agent in reply noted that it had garnered over 24K likes in under 2 minutes. 7.7 I guess they're just more upset about the election theft than you are. Minutes after drawing increased attention to his besieged vice president, the president called newly elected Senator Tommy Tuberville of Alabama at 2:26 p.m. He misdialed, calling Senator Mike Lee of Utah instead, but one passed the phone to the other in short order. President Trump wanted to talk objections to the electoral count. But Senator Tuberville, along with every other elected official trapped and surrounded in the building, had other things on his mind. I said, Mr. President, they've taken the vice president out. They want me to get off the phone. I gotta go, Senator Tuberville told reporters. We are not doing much work here right now. In the next half hour, between 2:26 p.m. and 3:06 p.m., President Trump spoke with House Leader Kevin McCarthy. Leader McCarthy told the public in a live interview with CBS News, while he and his colleagues were sheltering at a secure location, that he was very clear in telling President Trump to talk to the nation to tell them to stop this. Leader McCarthy later recounted his conversation to a number of people, including Representative Jamie Herrera Butler, a Republican congresswoman from Washington state. You have got to get on TV, you've got to get on Twitter, you've got to call these people off, he said. He told the president. These aren't my people, these are Antifa, President Trump insisted, against all evidence. They're your people. They literally just came through my office windows, and my staff are running for cover. I mean, they're running for their lives. You need to call them off, Leader McCarthy told him. What President Trump said next was chilling, in Representative Herrera Butler's words. Well, Kevin, I guess they're just more upset about the election theft than you are, the president said. The call then devolved into a swearing match. Mick Mulvaney, former chief of staff to President Trump, had a similar call with Leader McCarthy in the days after the attack. McCarthy told Mulvaney that he urged the president to get the rioters to stop, and the president replied, Kevin, Maybe these people are just more angry about this than you are. Mark Short, the Vice President's Chief of Staff, spoke with Leader McCarthy later that afternoon. Leader McCarthy told Short that he had spoken with President Trump and that he was frustrated that the White House was not taking the circumstance as seriously as they should at that moment. The administration was demonstrating a lack of response or lack of responsibility, Leader McCarthy told Short. At 2:49 p.m. as the violence escalated, President Trump's speechwriter Gabriel Robert texted someone, "POTUS I'm sure is loving this." 7.8 Stay peaceful. No one was getting through to the president. So Hirschman went to Ivanka Trump's office, hoping she would come to the dining room and be a calming influence on her father. Hirschman just sort of barged in and told her to turn on the television. After taking in a few of the violent scenes together, Hirschman and Ivanka Trump left the room and walked to the dining room, where her father was holed up. At 2:38 p.m., the president issued a tweet. "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful." Ivanka Trump told the Select Committee that the president did not push back on her suggestion to issue the tweet, and that it was either she or President Trump himself who suggested the last line, "Stay peaceful." She confirmed there may have been some tweaking of the wording. McEnany, who was in the room at the time, wrote in her notes that "I say we support peaceful protest." Ivanka adds "stay peaceful" instead. To the Select Committee, McEnany echoed Ivanka Trump that the president wasn't resistant in any way to putting out the message. But in private, McEnany told a different story to her deputy Sarah Matthews. Back in the White House press office, Matthews told McEnany that the tweet did not go far enough in condemning the violence. McEnany, noting that other staffers in the room were distracted, said in a hushed tone that the president did not want to include any sort of mention of peace in that tweet. "That took some convincing on their part," McEnany said, "and it wasn't until Ivanka Trump suggested the phrase 'stay peaceful' that he finally agreed to include it." Ivanka Trump repeatedly returned to the dining room to counsel her father throughout the day. It has been reported that each time Ivanka Trump thought she had made headway with her father, Meadows would call her to say the president still needed more persuading, a cycle that repeated itself over several hours that afternoon. After one such trip, Ivanka Trump told the Select Committee she went to her husband's office next door because she needed to regroup and collect herself. Several witnesses corroborated pieces of this account. General Kellogg said he saw Ivanka Trump coming and going from the dining room at least twice that afternoon. Hutchinson said that it was several times. Image: Sarah Matthews testifies at a January 6 Select Committee hearing. Photo by House Creative Services. Once, Ivanka Trump reportedly left her father with a look on her face as if she had just had a tough conversation. Radford, Ivanka Trump's chief of staff, saw that she was visibly upset but continued going down there when people were asking her to be down there and trying to get action taken. Radford told the Select Committee that Ivanka Trump believed that something should be said or put out that was even stronger. Hutchinson, too, recalled Ivanka Trump dropping by Meadows' office alongside Cipollone and talking about trying to convince her father to say something more direct than he had wanted to at that time and throughout the afternoon. "I remember her saying at various points," Hutchinson said, "she wanted her dad to send them home. She wanted her dad to tell them to go home peacefully, and she wanted to include language that he necessarily wasn't on board with at the time." 7.9 The president needs to stop this ASAP. President Trump's 2:38 p.m. tweet did not condemn the violence at the Capitol. It did not tell rioters to leave the building. Image: testimony footage of former White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany is played during a January 6 Select Committee hearing. Photo by Poole, Getty Images. In the minutes before the tweet, Fox News, on the president's screen, relayed that the Capitol was on lockdown, that Capitol police officers were injured, that rioters were in the building and just feet from the House chamber. In the minutes afterward, networks would report there was tear gas in the Capitol, forcing members of Congress to evacuate in protective masks. At 2:39 p.m., Secret Service agents reported that more just got in. "I don't know how they're gonna retake the Capitol building back at this point," one agent wrote to others 2 minutes later. At 2:44 p.m., a Capitol police officer shot a rioter named Ashley Babbitt. A handwritten note, dashed off onto a White House pocket card and preserved by the National Archives, read, "One ex-civilian gunshot wound to chest at door of House chamber." One White House employee saw the note on the dining table in front of President Trump. A barrage of text messages inundated Meadows' phone with a consistent plea. Everyone from conservative media personalities to Republican allies in Congress, and even the president's own family, urged the president to do more. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, 2:28 p.m. "Mark, I was just told there is an active shooter on the first floor of the Capitol. Please tell the president to calm people. This isn't the way to solve anything." Laura Ingraham, 2:32 p.m. "Hey Mark, the sick president needs to tell people in the Capitol to go home. This is hurting all of us. He is destroying his legacy and playing into every stereotype. We lose all credibility against the BLM, Antifa crowd if things go south. You can tell him I said this." Mick Mulvaney, 2:35 p.m. "Mark, he needs to stop this now. Can I do anything to help?" Representative Barry Loudermilk, 2:44 p.m. "It's really bad up here on the Hill. They have breached the Capitol." At 2:48 p.m., Meadows responded, "POTUS is engaging." At 2:49 p.m., Loudermilk responded, "Thanks. This doesn't help our cause." Representative William Timmons, 2:46 p.m., "The president needs to stop this ASAP." At 2:49 p.m., Meadows responded, "We are doing it." Donald Trump Jr., 2:53 p.m., "He's got to condemn, sick, this shit. ASAP. The Capitol, sick, police tweet is not enough." Meadows responded, "I am pushing it hard. I agree." Later, Trump Jr. continued, "This is sick, one you go to the mattresses on. They will try to F his entire legacy on this if it gets worse." White House staff discussed issuing yet another, stronger statement to address the ongoing, and escalating, violence. Around 3 p.m., one proposal was written in block capital letters on a pocket card from the Chief of Staff's office. "Anyone WHO entered the Capitol illegally without proper authority should leave immediately. Note, the word illegally has been crossed out." The handwriting appears to have been scrawled quickly and somewhat messily. Hutchinson recalled Meadows returning from the dining room with the note in hand and placing it on her desk. The word illegally had been newly crossed out. But there would be no further action, Meadows told her. At 3:13 p.m., 35 minutes after his last tweet, the president issued another tweet. Rather than coming out with a stronger statement, the 3:13 p.m. tweet largely parroted the one preceding it. Image: guns are drawn in the House chamber on January 6 as rioters attempt to break in. Photo by Drew Anger, Getty Images. "I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order, respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you." Ivanka Trump, who was in the room when her father published the message, told the Select Committee that the gravity of the situation made her feel that it would be helpful to tweet again. "The earlier tweet didn't stop the violence," Hirschman said. "This tweet, like the last one, didn't tell the rioters to go home. It suggested that they remain at the Capitol, albeit peacefully." 7.10, "We love you. You're very special." The president's tweets were not damping down on the violence, and White House staff knew it. By 3:17 p.m., Fox News was reporting gunshots on Capitol Hill. Law enforcement officers could be seen in the House chamber, pointing guns over the barricaded door, the Chiron blared guns drawn on House floor. Between 3:29 p.m. and 3:42 p.m., the network was flashing images of a protester in the presiding officer's chair, right where Vice President Pence had been sitting 90 minutes earlier. Other images showed members of Congress trapped in the House gallery, crouching below the balcony for cover. Allies continued to text Meadows, begging the president to order the mob to go home and indicating that it was time the American people hear from the president directly. Unknown, 3:04 p.m. Are you with POTUS right now? Hearing he is in the dining room watching this on TV. Is he going to say anything to de-escalate apart from that tweet? Reince Priebus, 3:09 p.m. Tell them to go home. Unknown, 3:13 p.m. POTUS should go on air and defuse this. Extremely important. Alyssa Farah, 3:13 p.m. POTUS has to come out firmly and tell protesters to dissipate. Someone is going to get killed. Representative Chip Roy, 3:25 p.m. Fix this now. Meadows responded, "We are." Sean Hannity, Fox News, 3:31 p.m. Can he make a statement? I saw the tweet. Ask people to peacefully leave the Capitol, sick. Meadows responded, on it. Katrina Pearson, 3:40 p.m. Note, I was able to keep the crazies off the stage. I stripped all branding of those nutty groups and removed videos of all of the psychos. Glad it, sick, fought it. Unknown, 3:42 p.m. Please have POTUS call this off at the Capitol. Urge rioters to disperse. I pray to you. Unknown, 3:57 p.m. Is he coming out? He has to write? Brian Kilmeade, 3:58 p.m. Fox News, please get him on TV. Destroying everything you guys have accomplished. Donald Trump Jr., 4:05 p.m. We need an Oval address. He has to lead now. It's gone too far and gotten out of hand. At any moment in the afternoon, it would have been easy for President Trump to get before cameras and call off the attack. The White House press briefing room is just down the hallway from the Oval Office, past the Cabinet Room and around the corner to the right. It would have taken less than 60 seconds for the president to get there. The space, moreover, is outfitted with cameras that are constantly hot, meaning that they are on and ready to go live at a moment's notice. Image, President Trump outside. The White House press corps is also situated in the West Wing, right by the briefing room. The whole affair could have been assembled in minutes. However, it was not until nearly 3 hours after the violence began that President Trump finally agreed to tell the mob to go home. The Presidential Daily Diary notes that President Trump left the dining room to shoot the video at 4:03 p.m. By this point, per Fox News coverage playing continually in the dining room, more law enforcement officers had arrived at the Capitol to resist the violent mob. The video shoot took place in the Rose Garden, the outdoor space that borders the Oval Office and the West Wing. The setup was not ornate, just a camera and a microphone. Luna made sure that the background and lighting looked good, and that President Trump's hair and tie were in place. President Trump delivered his remarks in one take, more or less, although he stopped and restarted at one point. In all, the video took less than 4 minutes to shoot, and the president was back in the dining room by 4:07 p.m. I would stick to this script, McEnany told President Trump before he stepped out to film. He didn't. Kushner and others had drafted a statement, but President Trump spoke entirely off the cuff. Here's what he said. I know your pain. I know you're hurt. We had an election that was stolen from us. It was a landslide election and everyone knows it, especially the other side. But you have to go home now. We have to have peace. We have to have law and order. We have to respect our great people in law and order. We don't want anybody hurt. It's a very tough period of time. There's never been a time like this where such a thing happened where they could take it away from all of us, from me, from you, from our country. This was a fraudulent election. But we can't play into the hands of these people. We have to have peace. So go home, we love you. You're very special. You've seen what happens. You see the way others are treated that are so bad and so evil. I know how you feel, but go home and go home in peace. A photo obtained from the National Archives shows President Trump and Hirschman huddled next to each other, watching a completed take through the monitor on the video camera. There needs to be a more direct statement telling the rioters to leave the Capitol, Luna heard Hirschman, yet again, tell the president. Hirschman testified that he did not recall this exchange. But according to Luna, President Trump rejected the note. "These people are in pain," he said in reply. Down at the Capitol, the video began streaming onto rioters' phones, and by all accounts including video footage taken by other rioters, they listened to President Trump's command. "Donald Trump has asked everybody to go home," one rioter shouted as he delivered the president's message. "That's our order," another rioter responded. Others watching the video responded, "He says, go home." The crowd afterward began to disperse. The video made clear what had been evident to many, including those closest to him. The president could have called off the rioters far earlier and at any point that day. But he chose not to do so. It was not until it was obvious that the riot would fail to stop the certification of the vote that the president finally relented and released a video statement made public at 4:17 p.m. Image: President Trump huddles with aides, watching a completed take of a video through the monitor of the video camera. Photo provided to the Select Committee by the National Archives and Records Administration. 7.11 Remember this day forever. After leaving the Rose Garden, the president returned to the dining room. At 6:01 p.m., he issued another tweet, the last of the day. "These are the things and events that happen when a sacred landslide election victory is so unceremoniously and viciously stripped away from great patriots who have been badly and unfairly treated for so long. Go home with love and in peace. Remember this day forever." He retired to his residence for the evening at 6:27 p.m. A White House photographer captured the president walking back to the residence with an employee in tow, carrying personal items President Trump wished to bring home with him for the night. In the employee's hands are the gloves the president was wearing while addressing the crowd at the Ellipse. The president had one parting comment to the employee, the thing that was evidently occupying his mind even after an afternoon of violence, before he retired to his home. "Mike Pence let me down," the president concluded. 7.12 President Trump still sought to delay the joint session. Even after President Trump finally told the rioters to go home, he and his lead attorney, Rudolph Giuliani, continued to seek to delay the joint session of Congress. Giuliani began frantically calling the White House line the very minute that the president's video went up on Twitter. Failing to get through, he called back, once every minute, 4:17 p.m., 4:18 p.m., 4:19 p.m., 4:20 p.m. He managed to get through, briefly, to Mark Meadows at 4:21 p.m., and then kept calling the White House line, at 4:22 p.m., 3 times on 2 different phones at 4:23 p.m., 4:24 p.m., and once more at 5:05 p.m. He finally managed to speak with President Trump at 5:07 p.m., and the two spoke for almost 12 minutes. After he spoke with President Trump, Giuliani's phone calls went nearly without fail to members of Congress, Senator Marsha Blackburn, and then Senator Mike Lee. He made 3 calls to Senator Bill Hagerty, then 2 to Representative Jim Jordan. He called Senator Lindsey Graham, Senator Josh Hawley, and Senator Ted Cruz. Giuliani had 2 calls with Senator Dan Sullivan over the course of the evening. There were another 3 calls to Representative Jordan, none of which connected. After 8:06 p.m., when the joint session resumed, the calls to members of Congress finally stopped. Shortly afterward, at 8:39 p.m., Giuliani had one final call of 9 minutes with the president. When asked about these calls during his deposition before the Select Committee, Giuliani initially refused to answer. Giuliani insisted his calls to members of Congress, none of whom were his client, were all attorney-client privileged. But Giuliani eventually relented. "I was probably calling to see if anything could be done," he said. "About the vote, the vote." We know definitively what Giuliani was up to because he left a voice message for Senator Tuberville, inadvertently on Senator Lee's phone, recording his request. He wanted for you, our Republican friends, to try to just slow it down, referring to the electoral count, and delay the joint session. Here are his own words. The only strategy we can follow is to object to numerous states and raise issues so that we get ourselves into tomorrow, ideally until the end of tomorrow. So if you could object to every state and, along with a congressman, get a hearing for every state, I know we would delay you a lot, but it would give us the opportunity to get the legislators who are very, very close to pulling their vote. Image: Mike Pence reopens the joint session of Congress and resumes counting electoral votes. Photo by Will McEnany, Getty Images. The president, too, was at home, but he remained focused on his goal. Between 6:54 p.m. and 11:23 p.m., he spoke with 13 people, some more than once. Of the 13, 6 ignored or expressly refused to comply with Select Committee requests for their testimony. 2 agreed to appear but refused to answer questions about their phone calls with the president, citing executive privilege. 2 more refused to answer questions, claiming attorney-client privilege. Of the 13, 5 were President Trump's attorneys or lawyers who worked with him on efforts to reverse the outcome of the election. With one exception, each of these calls took place before 8:06 p.m., when Vice President Pence reopened the joint session of Congress and resumed counting the electoral votes. The president spoke with White House counsel Pat Cipollone for 7 minutes at 7:01 p.m. He spoke with Gert Olson and Mark Martin, lawyers who both advised him on the vice president's role in the joint session. He spoke with Martin for 9 minutes at 7:30 p.m., and Olson twice, for 11 minutes at 7:17 p.m. and for another 10 minutes at 7:40 p.m. He spoke with Cleta Mitchell, the lawyer leading his election challenges in Georgia, for 2 minutes at 7:53 p.m. The president spoke with Hirschman for 5 minutes at 10:50 p.m. Another 5 of the people who spoke with President Trump that night were employees or outside advisors who counseled him on communications issues. These calls, by contrast, predominantly took place after the joint session resumed. He spoke with his communications director, Scavino, twice, for 7 minutes at 7:08 p.m. and for 15 minutes at 9:55 p.m. He spoke with McEnany for 11 minutes at 9:42 p.m. He took calls from Steve Bannon, for 7 minutes at 10:19 p.m., and Sean Hannity, for 8 minutes at 11:08 p.m. At 9:23 p.m., President Trump spoke with Jason Miller, his campaign communications director, for 18 minutes. Of his own initiative, Miller had drafted a statement for the president assuring the nation that the transfer of power, despite the day's events, would, indeed, take place. On their call, the president pushed back on the phrasing. The president wanted the statement to promise a peaceful transition of power, rather than just an orderly one. Miller rejected the change and told him why rather bluntly. "That ship's kind of already sailed," he said, "so we're going to say orderly transition." 7.13, he just didn't want to talk about it anymore. The president did not, by any account, express grief or regret for what happened at the Capitol. Neither did he appear to grasp the gravity of what he had set in motion. In his last phone call of the night, the president spoke with Johnny McKendy, his director of personnel. "This is a crazy day," the president told him. McKendy said his tone was one of like, "Wow, can you believe this shit?" Did he express sadness over the violence visited upon the Capitol? "No," McEnany said. "I mean, I think he was shocked by, it getting a little out of control, but I don't remember sadness, specifically." President Trump didn't make any other phone calls for the rest of the night. The president didn't call Vice President Pence. In fact, President Trump never called to check on his vice president's safety that day. He didn't call the heads of any of the federal law enforcement agencies. He didn't call the leadership, neither Republican nor Democrat, of the legislative branch of government that had just been overrun by a mob. Only 2 days after the riot, by January 8, the president was over the whole thing. He just didn't want to talk about it anymore, he told his press aides. He was tired of talking about it. Ivanka Trump claimed to the Select Committee that her father was disappointed and surprised by the attack, but she could not name a specific instance of him expressly saying it. I just felt that," she said. "I know him really well." Here's what she could definitively say. Committee staff, has he ever expressed to you any sentiment that he did or did not do the right thing and how he responded on the day of the 6th? Ms. Trump, no. Committee staff, has he ever expressed any sentiment about something that he wished he had done on the day of the 6th? Ms. Trump, no. Committee staff, has he ever said anything to you about the people who were injured or who died that day? Ms. Trump, no. Committee staff, has he ever said anything to you about whether he should or should not continue to talk about the 2020 presidential election after the events on the 6th? Ms. Trump, no. 7.14 President Trump's rhetoric killed someone. The president may not have expressed regret over his behavior, but some of his most loyal supporters made the connection between his words and the violence. A member of the speechwriting team, Patrick McDonnell, conceded the next day in a text that maybe the rhetoric could have been better. As the riot was in full throttle, even steadfast supporter Ali Alexander of Stop the Steal texted, "POTUS is not ignorant of what his words will do. We all look like domestic terrorists now," Hope Hicks texted Julie Radford. Separately, Hicks texted Hirschman, "So predictable and so sad." "I know," he replied. "Tragic. I'm so upset. Everything we worked for wiped away," she continued. "I agree. Totally self-inflicted," he wrote. Brad Parscale, Trump's former campaign manager, texted Katrina Pearson at 7:21 p.m. on January 6, saying the day's events were the result of a sitting president asking for civil war. "This week I feel guilty for helping him win. A woman is dead," Parscale added. "You do realize this was going to happen?" Pearson answered. "Yeah. If I was Trump, sick, and knew my rhetoric killed someone," he said. "It wasn't the rhetoric," she said. Parscale's reply, "Yes it was." Thank you for your time. Please remember to like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this, and share this video with others. Endnotes are shown, but not read.